I'm about to do is break it down. Rishi Rich. Dance.
The door is open. The Prime Minister's here with her husband.
I'm sorry to hear that your grandma passed away. I actually am. Obviously, I'm gonna be upset about that, yeah. And then, Dika, you know, the only thing is, no one can force me to be a mate or anything, yeah. And I don't want to be mates with you, alright?
Well, extraordinary moments in British political history.
To make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas, then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Let me just say first, I am a Tory party member, and my dad was a constituency chairman, and we support Boris, and I'd say, in my estimate, 80% of the members support Boris. So that's where we're at. And our perspective is different to, the media perspective, the markets. Both my daughters work in the city. There's a lot of AI algorithms coming from abroad, tampering with the markets. Now, we can't let the markets and the media run our country. It's a democracy. We are the voters, and we support Boris. So we want Boris back, and Boris has the best chance of winning the general election next time. So Rishi's not going to win it. Rishi's not even British, in most people's opinion. He's not. He's got American allegiance. His family's American. They're Indian business people. He'll go and live in America, no doubt. He doesn't love England like Boris does.
Okay. Jerry, to my knowledge, Rishi Sunak was born in the UK. He went to Winchester School, which, as you know, is a long-established public school in this country. As I understand it, he was born at Southampton General Hospital.
Well, can I just say, one of my mates, I was in the military, one of my mates was born in Uganda. He's white as the driven snow, and he's English as English can be. He's not African, is he? Because he's born in Uganda. That doesn't mean anything.
No, sorry, I'm just picking up I'm just picking up on the fact that you suggested that Rishi Sunak isn't British or English and doesn't love the country as much as Boris Johnson as a result. So I just want to clarify that with you, that he was born in this country, that he went to one of the country's most prestigious public schools, that he has worked, of course, in the city and then took up politics, that he is the man that many people credit through the furlough scheme, saved the economy. And you don't think that proves that he's British?
Holds a green card. His wife and the family business, their fortune. His wife.
Hang on. He's relinquished the green card, first of all.
True,
and
but
quite rightly.
He had to relinquish it. His wife is not British. She holds American citizenship.
He himself is a British citizen, isn't he?
Okay, lots of people are. Half of Al Qaeda are British citizens. You don't understand how.
I'm so sorry.
What? Half of Al Qaeda are British citizens. This guy is insane. Now, obviously, he's missing the point that Boris Johnson was born in Manhattan. Boris Johnson was not born in Britain. Rishi Sunak is more British than Boris Johnson. But for this man, he's not, because, well, there's a little difference between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. What is that? Can you identify what it is? Obviously, it's his skin colour. And, as I said at the beginning of this, not all Brexiteers are racist, but all all racists are Brexiteers, it seems, and it seems to be the case with Boris Johnson supporters. The racists are backing Boris Johnson. Why? Well, is it because he's white? In the same way that many of them were backing Liz Truss over Rishi Sunak.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. Hope you enjoyed those clips. Hope that brightened up your morning. So let's get to serious matters, shall we? Let's talk a bit about Rishi Sunak. And I've been told by people that Rishi Sunak is putting some laws in place where we are not allowed to talk about him and his family, his wife's tax dealings, emphasis, and a few other things. So the British media is not going to be allowed to talk about such things. So I'm going to try and say everything I can in this video before that law comes into effect. So as you know, Biden and Sunak had a phone call. This was Rishi Sunak's second phone call to Biden, by the way. I'm going to talk about who Sunak phoned first. You can probably guess who. So Biden and Sunak had a phone call, and you can see here things are not going to change. Sunak has promised Biden he's going to carry on with Boris's policies. He's going to be tough on China, tough on Russia. So anybody that expected any sorts of change in the government, any change in direction, nope, not happening. Not happening at all. In fact, Rishi is probably going to double down on everything. You know, Liz Truss came in and she got kicked out after 40 days, 45 days. She tried the same approach. Stay tough on China, stay tough on Russia, and look where it's got her. You know what Britain needs is a strong leader who can sit down and think rationally, think with common sense, and stop listening to all of these warmongering idiots. Unfortunately, Rishi Sunak does not have the balls to do the right thing, and unfortunately, he's not the guy either. So his first phone call, again, just like Liz Truss, breaks tradition and calls Zelensky first. And I love how these papers are painting him doing this, and you can see by the Telegraph, it says Joe Biden was Rishi Sunak's second overseas call as PM. And I want to remind you when Liz Truss did this as well. Liz Truss called Biden second, and she called Zelensky first. And it was a completely different article. They was talking about Liz Truss breaking tradition, and she was insulting the president of the United States. But none of that. I mean, look how calmly they say this. Joe Biden was Rishi Sunak's second overseas call as prime minister. Oh, how grateful they must feel. And do you know what I mean? It's completely different tone. And the guy he called first is obviously Zelensky. And so if we read this article and we go all the way to the bottom, you can see right at the end line, it says, Mr. Sunak had earlier called Ukrainian President Zelensky, reiterating the UK's staunch support of Ukraine in its war against Russia. So this tells me this. Liz Truss did exactly the same thing, and Mr. Sunak is now following the same way as Liz Truss did. Liz Truss did also call Volodymyr Zelensky as a first phone call. She phoned Biden second, and now Rishi Sunak is doing the same thing. So this tells me that Rishi Sunak is controlled by the same people who are controlling Liz Truss. And Liz Truss has been made into some sort of scapegoat, a guinea pig. And now Sunak is in power. He's doing exactly the same thing Liz Truss is doing. This shows me that he's controlled by the same people as Liz Truss was controlled. And I'll tell you another thing as well. I'll show you something else. No U-turn from Jeremy Hunt on scrapping the banker's bonus cap. So they have reversed everything that Liz Truss has done, except reverse this scrapping of the bankers' bonus cap. And you know why that is, don't you? Because Sunak used to work in finance. He used to work in one of the biggest banks. I believe it's Goldman Sachs or something. Yeah, it's Goldman Sachs. So you tell me, why would he reverse everything except reverse bankers' bonus cap? This tells me that he is controlled by the bankers. And he's also following the exactly same path as Liz Truss did. I don't understand why anyone would do that. I mean, look at what happened to Liz Truss. I would imagine anyone with brains would try a different path. They will say, okay, what Liz Truss didn't work, so I'm going to go this direction. It takes a lot of balls to do that. It's not only the bankers that are benefiting, you got the oil, fossil fuel companies as well, making a huge profit, while people in England have their bills doubled, tripled, even quadrupled. And you have stories how Shell and BP are making a killing, absolute killing. Liz Truss was not willing to put any windfall taxes on them. She's rather put taxes on the people. And looks like Rishi Sunak is going along the same direction as well. These leaders have no balls whatsoever to attack the banks, to attack the Shell and BP and other gas and electricity companies, because they have no balls. Because these are the companies that run this country. And you can see with Rishi Sunak's policies, Liz Truss's policies, exactly the same. It's still benefiting these companies and benefiting the bankers, benefiting the fossil fuel companies. And this is why nothing's going to change. Whether Rishi Sunak is boss, whether Mr. Bean is boss, anyone can be boss. Anyone can be prime minister as long as they toe the line. And this is exactly what Rishi Sunak is doing. He's towing the line to these major corporations that actually run the country, not him. So he has also mentioned that he's going to carry on banning Chinese institutes at UK universities, and Rishi Sunak has pledged to scrap them. So you can see he's following the exactly same anti-Chinese stance as Liz Truss did. Exactly the same. And now after his call with Biden, he has agreed that he's going to stay with his anti-Chinese stance, and he has agreed to stay with his anti-Russian stance as well. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. In these economic times, you need countries like China, to build up an economic partnership with the second largest economy in the world. Already China is UK's biggest trading partner. So I do not understand why this anti-Chinese rhetoric has come from, especially during this hard times in the UK. I mean, who else is going to buy the bonds? If the Americans are not buying them and you're kicking out all Chinese investments, Russians are not going to buy them. You kicked out all the Russians' investments as well. You kicked out all the Russians that live in here in UK. Absolutely unbelievable. He's just following the same path as Liz Truss. Absolutely unbelievable. So, just when you thought Priti Patel was bad, Rishi Sunak is taking things one step further. He's looking to ban strikes and ban protests as well. We've all seen images of protesters all over London who are spraying up these rich car companies like Aston Martin showrooms and Bentley showrooms, Lamborghini showrooms. They're spraying them with paint. There's protesters going into art museums and throwing soup on paintings. And there's women who are spraying the Scotland Yard. And then you've seen protesters blocking roads and blocking traffic. End of the day. But I'll tell you one thing, it's not violent. It's not violent protests. And they do that for publicity. Throwing soup at a painting is publicity. And people might say, oh, they're destroying art. They're not destroying art. You know, end of the day, these art galleries, they all protect their paintings from people. They cover them in glass. You're welcome to go to any art gallery. Every single painting is covered in glass because they know people are going to touch it or destroy it. It was all done for publicity, guys. And spraying these, you know, car companies like Bentley and Aston Martin, they can afford it. They probably make millions. They can afford it. They can sell one car and that's it, you know. Just bring the cleaners in. It's just peanuts for them. End of the day, these protesters are doing it for publicity, and now UK Sunak is going to ban protests. So if I go out on the streets and ban, you know, stop protesting about the cost of living crisis, I could be arrested. If I talk about it, I could be arrested. That's how the government is heading. No more free speech. You know, there's an area in London called Speaker's Corner, and that Speaker's Corner was always there as, you know, a platform for free speech. You are allowed to step there and talk about whatever you want, and you're not going to get arrested. You can do whatever you want. But it's not true. You're welcome to go to YouTube, and there are, you know, images and videos of people getting arrested for speaking their minds. Actual images of, and videos of people getting arrested, and these videos have been posted on YouTube. You are not allowed to speak your mind anymore. If they don't like what you say, they will arrest you. Now Sunak wants to put ban on strikes and protests. I don't know what you think about strikes, but strikes are good. You know, if you don't strike, that's it. You know, your salary is not going to rise. These rail protests going on, these nurses protests going on, lawyers have been protesting, and it's their right to do so because they feel undervalued. Inflation's going through the roof, and it's right that people want their wages to go up with inflation. If your wages are not going up, but inflation is going up, then you as a person is losing money. You're earning less because what you make in your work, it's not enough for what you have to spend outside. So you see what Rishi Sunak is doing. He's also putting up some rules that you're not allowed to speak about his wife's tax dealings, emphasis, and many other things. So it sounds to me he's going to be much, much worse than Liz. Much worse. So we all know about his wife. She is a non-domicile. She earns about £750 million from Infosys because she's a shareholder for Infosys. And let me show you something about Infosys, by the way. This is Infosys's website. And you can see all of their offices all around the world. And the funny thing is, guess what? Funny thing is, check this out. They still got their offices in Russia. But the media is not going to tell you anything like that because they are not allowed to mention anything about Infosys. They are not allowed to mention anything about Infosys, Russia's dealings, because now he's prime minister. All of this is going to be kept quiet. From what I heard, his wife is no longer a non-domicile, but I've not seen it confirmed anywhere. Nobody's really talked about it. Nobody really covered it from the press. So I'm not really sure how she's going around this at the moment. So she's still making 780 million from Infosys, but previously she wasn't paying any tax on that, not even like 1%, because what non-domicile means, you do not pay tax on your overseas earnings. And that's how the rich get away with not paying tax. And this is how the rest of us have to pay the tax, working class people. But the rich will just get away with it. They'll become non-domicile or find other ways to avoid tax and live life like a king or a queen, while the rest of us have to suffer and pay ridiculous amount of tax. Other things that the press is not going to mention is Rishi Sunak has recently made a swimming pool in his property. He's actually got dozens of properties all over the world, by the way, all over the world, in United States, in Dubai, in UK, many other countries, in India even. And he's recently bought this swimming pool, built it in his where he lives in UK. And the gas bill or the electricity bill comes to 17,000 per month. 17,000 per month he has to pay for the bill. But it's nothing for him because he's a billionaire. Him and his wife, they're billionaires, so it's small change to him. There was another clip of him talking about how he doesn't have any working class friends. And I've shown you a clip in the beginning of this show how he said that the Labour have been putting a lot of money into poor areas, so he's going to change that now. He's going to move that money from the poor areas and start putting it into the rich areas. That shows his priorities. This shows why he's here, why he's in power. And also, you got to understand Rishi Sunak's Infosys connection is very, very deep. So I did a lot of investigation, and a lot of other people have done it as well. It's not just me. But everybody knows that his father-in-law owns Infosys. But a lot of people do not realize that some of Rishi Sunak's policies is going to be controlled by Infosys. For example, Rishi Sunak wants to bring out a digital pound. It's called the Bitcoin in the next 5 years, digital currency. And Infosys has been given that contract to do it. And the other thing is, WEF, one of its major supporters is Infosys. And you can see all of these, WEF and these Infosys connections and globalists. It's all connected, guys. It's all connected. It's all, it's all about the WEF and the next industrial revolution. And the fact that Rishi Sunak is doing exactly the same things as Liz, I'm talking about calling Zelensky first, calling Biden second, keeping the bankers' bonus cap. Getting rid of the bankers' bonus caps. These are all stuff that the WEF or the bankers want. And this is exactly what Rishi Sunak is doing. This is exactly what Liz Truss is doing. End of the day, Liz Truss has been kicked out because she was completely clueless in front of the media. Media didn't like her. Her interviews were terrible. Her press conferences were terrible, and people had lost confidence in her. Rishi Sunak does talk better than Liz Truss. He is more cleverer than Liz Truss. However, the policies will be exactly the same. Liz Truss basically did a policy which didn't work and got her kicked out because the pound fell. But I'm telling you this. If Rishi Sunak carries on with his same policies and carries on with what he's doing now, the pound will also collapse very, very soon. It's not going to get any better for UK. It's actually going to get worse. Don't forget, winter is coming. It's coming next month. Things are not going to get any better with Ukraine. The dollar's going to get stronger. Pound's going to carry on getting weaker. The bonds are going to get, cheaper. The yields are going to get more expensive. Britain's exports are getting lower. Britain's imports are getting more expensive. Things are not going to get better. You have the interest rates rising. The Bank of England is going to raise interest rates. People's mortgages are going to get higher. Cost of living is getting higher every single day. Gas bills, electricity bills are getting higher. Inflation's getting higher. So it's just getting worse. Every month that goes by, it's getting worse and worse for average citizens to keep their home, keep warm, ability to eat, feed their children. All of that's getting worse. It's not going to get any better. I expected Rishi Sunak to come in and completely have a change of direction, but I was wrong. He's doing exactly the same thing Liz Truss is, and probably much worse. So that's all I have for today, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to support me on Patreon or Locals. I really appreciate it. Channels like myself need that support. And also for the rest of you, just carry on liking, sharing, subscribing. Go in the comment section for the algorithm. Any little helps. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.